Horns up and welcome to Heavy Conversations. I'm your host Demonstealer, and today we're going to be talking about how, or why rather, did I spend 10,000 US dollars to record my latest album. I had asked you guys if you wanted me to do a breakdown of the expenses of the album, and since I had done one for one of my previous EPs, you guys said yes because you obviously found it interesting to know what goes into making an album like the ones I do. So here we are today. I have got my trusty notepad with all my accounts and figures, so let's get straight into it. My latest album, The Propaganda Machine, cost me about 10,000 US dollars to make, or 8.3 lakhs in Indian rupees. Now that is a fairly large sum of money for most people, I would think. But if you actually look at what a lot of the more prolific artists spend, it's actually a drop in the ocean. Bands like Obituary have crowdfunded $65,000 to record an album, and obviously bands that are bigger and more popular, I mean, they're going into the $100,000 and above category. But I am still a independent artist, even though I am signed to a label for the release of this album. So $10,000 is a lot of money, and especially since I come from India where the currency is not as good as the dollar, spending 8.3 lakhs it's a lot of money. It could be somebody's salary for like 3 years. So it is a big sum of money. So I'm going to break down what are the things I spent on, why did I spend on them, and then I will also give you guys some insight into what you can do and how you can keep the costs down on your albums as well. And I'll also let you know how much I've actually earned so far from the amount that I've spent. So, as most of you know, I love working with the best metal musicians from all over the world. And that is why the biggest cost on my album is, well, almost the biggest cost on my album is the musicians. So all the musicians I work with are professional musicians, and they have to be paid for the work they do, So the amount of money that I spent, and this is keeping in mind that there are 12 musicians on the album, 4 drummers, 4 bass players, 3 lead guitar players, and 1 keyboard player. And I'll say this, I won't give you each musician's individual fee, but I will say that some of them did actually give me a discount and even didn't charge me anything because they really like the project and they really like the music that I make. So I am super grateful for that. Otherwise, this would have been even higher. So the total amount I spent on 12 musicians is 3,150 US dollars, which is 2.6 lakhs. Now, if you think of it, it's actually pretty reasonable. Even if you divided this amount equally among the 12 of them, it's not a lot. Given the fact that they had to practice the songs, they had to then record the songs, they've obviously spent money to create either a home recording setup or a studio setup where they can record, which is also a cost for them. And they also recorded video for me. Most of the songs have a playthrough style video. So given that they've done all that, I think this is actually a fairly reasonable amount that I spent, and I'm very lucky that this is all I had to actually spend for such incredible musicians. I can't say thank you to them enough for being a part of this project, and this is something I would always have to spend on every album, come what may. Now the next thing I spent on was artwork. Now if you know me, you know all my albums have amazing artwork. No thanks to me, but the amazing artists that I work with always deliver stellar artwork. And this time was no different. I had Damoff who designed the cover artwork, and then I had to pay for some inlay design, and I also had some merchandise designed separately. So all that stuff together cost me about 850 US dollars, which is about 71,000 Indian rupees. So again, artwork is something that I strongly believe in. I guess I just am an old school metalhead that way because I grew up in the CD era where you would go to a shop and you'd see the incredible artwork and you'd want to buy the album just because of the artwork. I know today that may not be the case, with the amount of stimulus to people with reels and with graphics and AI and this and that. So but it's still something that I am very passionate about. I always want to have great artwork to go along with my music, so it's something I'm not willing to compromise on. So that was a small chunk of money spent there. Then we had the mix. Now, for 20 years, I mixed my own music, and I've always been very insecure about my mixing abilities because, you know, the thing is, I grew up and I've been part of a scene where nothing existed. There were no studios for musicians that were playing extreme metal. There were no engineers that understood the sound, and I also wanted to make music long term. So for me, even from a cost perspective, it just made sense for me to mix and master my own music. Of course, 10 years into doing that, I actually started to outsource the mastering to other people just to get a fresh perspective on the songs and just have another set of years, give the music a little bit of a tweak. And finally, in 2020, I decided that EP I would hand over to somebody else to mix and master. I think for me, it's a realization that no matter how good I may be at mixing and mastering, somebody who does that professionally for a living, who records bands all the time, is mixing 4 5 albums a month, is obviously going to have more knowledge on the subject. So why would I not entrust my music to somebody who has that skill set? Whereas for me, I had to sort of, before every mix, I'd have to go online and watch like 100 tutorials or read up or test mix, and I was always not very sure about what I was doing. And again, this is because I did mixing and mastering more from a sort of side hustle perspective, and it wasn't like I want to be a mix engineer. No, I want to be a musician, but I mix and master because I need to. And I'm not bad at it, but like there are people who will do it better. So I handed it over to Hertz Studio in Poland for the last 2 EPs, and they were the guys I had to go to for this album as well, because they did such a good job. And I spent about $3,350 on mixing 8 songs, which is about 2.7 lakhs. Now, very honestly, it may seem like a lot to my Indian viewers, but if you actually think of it, it's fairly cheap. I don't think you would get, like, there are engineers that will charge you minimum $500 a song. So this is actually a little cheaper than that. More prolific engineers will charge you $1,000 per song, $1,200 a song just to mix, not counting mastering as well. So this again was a pretty good deal, paying under $3,500 for a mix and master job that, like, and again, this is a difficult mix and master because there are 4 different drummers, 4 different bass players. It is really challenging work, and I'm glad that they didn't charge me double for each song. So that was a fairly, again, another big chunk of expense is in the mix and master. Then of course, what good is your music if it sounds good and everything is perfect, but you don't promote it? So I spend a lot of money on PR. So that includes hiring a PR agency, spending on Facebook and Instagram adverts so that people discover the music. In fact, if any of you have discovered me through Instagram or Facebook ads, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know if my ads and all are working. But yeah, so I spent about $2,300 on that. And this is along with the record label that I signed to, putting in money into additional PR agencies and advertising as well. This is something just I wanted to do. And when I explain what my record deal is, it might make more sense. And finally, the last expense was the video recording, which cost me so far about $480 or 39,000 Indian rupees. So I basically make videos for every single song. And again, earlier I would edit everything, but at some point my time is valuable and there are people who edit better than I would. So all the videos have been outsourced to Sonic Spawn Studios. So far I have put out 6 videos from 8 songs on the album. There are 2 lyric videos and there are 4 playthrough videos. There are also standalone bass and drum playthrough videos that have also gone live. So all the work that I had to pay for cost about $480, and that is how I spent 10,000 US dollars on this album. And now this does not include a few more expenses, so there will be probably more advertising money paid in the coming months, and I still have 1 or 2 things to pay for. I think I can't remember right now, but I would say add another $1,000 to this. Now that's a lot of money to put into an album. Am I going to earn anything back? Well, it's been the album came out in March 31st, so that's April, May, June, and we are now in July. So in 3 months, let me tell you what I have actually earned back. So before I do that, I have to tell you that the album is a joint release between me and Black Lion Records. Black Lion Records basically makes the physical product of the CD and physical products of the album. So they printed digipack, they printed CDs, and the vinyl is in pressing now. It should be out in a month or 2 months. Fingers crossed that there are no delays. And they also have it on their Bandcamp. And I have released the digital album through my record label Demonstealer Records, which is defunct actually, but it's only for my projects right now. So keeping that in mind, I am yet to receive a statement from the record label about how many CDs and digipacks we sold, how many digital sales were on their Bandcamp. So I don't have those figures yet. They will come later in the year. But my own Bandcamp page has sold about 39 copies of the album, and I have made about $419. Now I'm not sure if this $419 includes all the taxes and fees from Bandcamp. I think it's what got paid out to me, so it probably doesn't include that. So let's just say $400 has come back to me. And from Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, Instagram Music, from all the digital services so far, I have made $325. So from my $10,000 expenses, I have so far not even recovered $1,000. I'm hoping that the CD sales have been good, that the record label has had a good amount of Bandcamp sales, and when the vinyl comes out, that also sells, and hopefully there is some money coming in. So if you haven't bought a copy of the album, it would be pretty nice if you did. So that would be good. Now, digital distribution, it's actually pretty decent that I've made $325, given the fact that my 2016 album, which is now that's 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20. It's about 7 years old. Yeah, 4 plus 3 7. That album in 7 years on Spotify, Spotify, Apple Music, all digital services has earned me $394. And my album from 2018, The Last Reptilian Warrior, that is, I guess, 5 years old now, has earned me $385 in 5 years. So you can see that in terms of digital sales, even if you have a reasonable amount of plays, the money that comes in is pretty bad. So far this album has been a loss-making venture for me, as was my last EP. I think my 2020 EP is almost going to break even. If another 20 people purchase the EP, I will break even on that. And that album had a lower cost only because I played all the instruments, so there was no musician cost on that album. Now, having said that, here's the thing. I wanted to make sure musicians understand that even fans understand, when you sell music, like, yeah, we always say, oh, buy on Bandcamp, or buy directly from the artist. But even then, like, the amount of money that actually comes to the artist is not as much as you think. So for example, my EP, the 2020 EP, I think if I had sold 1,000 copies at $5, I would have made $5,000. Except that when I sell the EP for $5, I don't get all $5. First of all, Bandcamp takes 15%. So 15% goes to Bandcamp, then it goes to PayPal, the money, because there's no other way to transfer it because I live in India. So it has to go into my PayPal account. PayPal takes 4%, and then that's another 4%. So almost 20% of that amount is already gone before it reaches my account. And then of course there is local taxes and things which I will pay at the end of the year. So the money doesn't always come straight to the artist. There is always some cut somewhere or the other. Even with merch there is a production cost, and so I sell on Red Wolf, which is a print on demand service. So print on demand is, for starters, more expensive because every time an order comes in, the t-shirt is printed and sent. Now if I were to order say 500 t-shirts, I would get a much lower cost because I'm buying in bulk. But that also means I've got 500 t-shirts sitting, which I have to then sell, ship, pack. Then I have to deal with sizes. So for example, I may make 500 t-shirts and I may sell out of medium and large, but then the smalls are not going. And if someone wants to buy the t-shirt, they come to my website and they're like, I want to buy a t-shirt, but I'm like, I only have small sizes left. So I'm going to lose a customer there. So print on demand is a much safer route to take. I also have an international store on Teespring. So again, there I make a couple of dollars per t-shirt. But yeah, on the Red Wolf stuff, we pay GST, we pay shipping, we pay packing. So even merch is not as profitable as you think. It is definitely more profitable than the music at most points. But even there are cuts and things that happen. So that's where I'm at in terms of the income. Hopefully, like I said, when the record label statement comes, I maybe do another update video and let you guys know where I've reached. Hopefully by the end of the year, at least the 2020 EP can break even, and maybe by next year sometime the 2021 EP will break even, and maybe a year after that this album will break even. But that's why I spent the amount of money I did. It gave me an album that I'm so proud of. I can confidently stand behind, and I can say that my artistic vision was brought to life. It's definitely something that I will look back and never regret, because it's a great album, I think. And I'm going to keep working to promote it. There are more videos coming. There will be more Instagram and Facebook ads, so there will be some more money being spent. But this is roughly what an album costs to make today. Unless you are going to save money somewhere. So for you as musicians who are watching and who are in bands, you obviously will save $3,000 odd just on the musician fees, which you won't have to pay for because you are the band and you will take home a profit share probably. But then you may have to pay for a recording studio if you don't own a studio, or if you are unable to record at home. And if you're doing that, you're anyway spending money and investing in that setup. So it is not technically a free lunch, so to speak. It is a personal expense to build something for yourself, which is what I also did. That's absolutely fine. But things like mixing and mastering, again, unless someone in the band is willing to do it as a free job and put their time and effort into it, and again, they'll do it for the first album, maybe the second album, but at some point, if that is their job, you are going to have to pay even your band members to do stuff. Similarly with artwork, many bands have members who are also artists, and they'll do the first design free, maybe a couple of them free, but at some point, if it's their day job to actually make art, they also have to be paid, basically. That was a bit of a tongue twister, but they also have to be paid for what they're doing, so I think that's something to keep in mind. And if you guys have recorded albums, I would love to know what kind of money have you ended up spending on the album. Have you ever recovered that money? Do you have any hopes of recovering it? For me, the whole purpose of making the album and selling it was to make sure that I could break even. For me, the goal is I would love to be able to make this $10,000 back, because then I can put it in the next album, and then maybe put in even more money and do things even better. Maybe someday if I sell enough copies of my albums, I would be able to fly to Europe and actually jam with the musicians and go into a studio and record the albums and not have to do things remotely. But for now, this is working pretty well. Fingers crossed that I sell some copies and break even on this. And I think in terms of what you guys can do is make decisions that make sense for you. At the end of the day, it's about finding the balance between the ultimate creative vision, where if you had all the money in the world, what could you do, versus what is realistic for you. Yeah, you could spend, if you didn't have the money and you spend $10,000-$15,000 making an album, there's a good chance that that might be the end of your band if you cannot further fund anything, or if you're unable to sell more copies to sort of make that break even figure. The advantage that most bands will have that I don't is that you as a band can tour. And I think that is the main area where you will be able to sell your music. So I think the biggest sort of plus point for touring bands is being able to sell the music directly to fans. When you're at a concert and you sell to a fan and that fan is putting a $10 bill in your hand and you're giving him a CD or her a CD, that is direct to artist. There's no middleman, there's no commission. Yeah, if you get those credit card machines and stuff, there is going to be some cut over there, but that is the absolute best, buying the merch and music at a show. And if you're a touring band, use that to your advantage. Play as many shows as you can, sell your merch and music at the shows, and that's what's going to help you to break even. So with Demonic Resurrection, my band, it was always a little easier to break even because we were touring, we were playing shows, we could take merch with us, we could print in bulk because we knew we were going to sell those many t-shirts, and that has always worked for us. Of course, now the band situation is different, but that's my story, that's my accounts for this album. Hopefully you found it entertaining and insightful, and I guess I will see you on the next episode of Heavy Conversations. Until then, cheers and stay metal.